Hi, it's Larry. We're going to show you about Geochron. Don't know what a Geochron is? Get ready to be amazed. This is Patrick. He's the big guy. He's the owner of Geochron. So he's going to show us how the Geochron works. This is an amazing device, and for you folks in ham radio, the amateur radio community, I'm telling you, you need it for, especially for gray line propagation. This is a must. Patrick, it's nice to meet you.
Hello there. So I'll just give you a quick run through. We sell two things here. One is the mechanical, which I'm standing in front of here, and then the other one is the digital, and we'll get to that in just a second. So right now, if you're looking at the gray line for your amateur radio guys, the sun is setting in New York, and the sun is rising in about 15 minutes in Tokyo. So we know that because this is the curve of the Earth. This is the curve of the sun, the insolation pattern of the sun, as the Earth is on a 23.4 axial tilt. The Earth is on a 23.4 degree axial tilt against the sun, creating the seasons. So this clock does it all automatically and has since 1964, which is important for us because we've been around an awful long time building just this clock. Although it didn't look this good in 1964, this is the best we can do. You can see here that we have a geopolitical map on this side, a topographical map on this side, and then let's see here. So, but to tell the time, right now we're in Pacific time, so that's time zone U. It's 1:45 on a Tuesday afternoon. And if you look at New Zealand right here, that's time zone M, and it's 9:45 on Wednesday morning. So people have used this clock in its mechanical form for more than 50 years to do that stuff.
How many moving parts are in those, Patrick?
Probably about 150 to 200 moving parts.
Really?
You know, there's an answer, like there's a specific answer because it costs so much money to get all these custom CNC parts. And for a small a little boutique manufacturer like us in the United States, that makes it a challenge to continue to build the clock after so long. But I'd say that's about right. Maybe about 300 parts overall.
Overall, wow.
Yeah, between moving and the non-moving. And we'll see a little in a minute what that looks like. So this clock is special in that it has a topographical map and a geopolitical map. The maps themselves are 6 feet long and they wind around inside the clock. This clock is also special because it's one of our Earth limited editions. It's number 6 out of 25 from 2017. You can see the solar pattern of the orbits that I designed to put into the black anodized panel, and then it has all the details that are written for each planet there in the orbit. And you probably can't see it from the video, but this has got small little. We should scoot in.
Take a look, Bob. Yeah, take a look, please.
So right in here it says like this is Saturn. And Saturn is 9.58 astronomical units from the sun. So an astronomical unit is the difference between here, distance from the sun, and the distance to the Earth. That's 1 AU. So out here, Neptune, that is 30 astronomical units. And it takes, how long would it take? How long do you think it takes the sunlight to reach Earth? The answer is right in here. It's 8.3 minutes. But out here in Neptune, it takes 4 hours and 6 minutes for a ray of light,
to actually
the photons, to actually ripple all the way out to there. So over the course of time, right now we're in January. We're in February. We're just coming through January, so it looks like this. And then the clock will automatically adjust. Now I'm moving in from April to May to June. There's my summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year and the shortest day of the year. July, August. There's the equinox right here, so equidistant days of the year. And that means that winter is coming again. So back into November, December, winter solstice. The analemma, now that little yellow dot, has traveled all the way from the top of the analemma over 6 months to the bottom of the analemma, and that's winter solstice, right about Christmas time, and we're back into in January.
One question I had too, Patrick. When I had mine, I didn't quite understand the figure 8 here. Could you describe that a little bit more about exactly? Because, like for example, on my question was why it's so long on the bottom, where on the top it's very narrow and smaller.
Yeah, That's a great
I
question.
couldn't figure out why they weren't equal. It was kind of the question I had when I had mine. It's beautiful. It's such a nice
Right.
piece. And for those wondering about that, there's a HD version you can use on your computer, which is very affordable. Really is. And it does virtually the same thing. But boy, see it on a 4K screen, you're in heaven.
Yeah. So just quickly, the analemma shows the relative position of the sun at noon. And so if you took a picture of the sun at noon every day in the sky and took 365 pictures for every day of the year and then made those pictures into a composite, it would form a figure 8 in the sky, because it would be high in the summer in the northern hemisphere and low in the winter. And so right now, having just passed a month ago winter solstice, we're very low on the curve.
Sure.
And now, as to I don't. This is difficult to explain, and I don't think I can do it very well. This comes all the way up to the Tropic of Cancer, and then down 23.4 degrees, all the way down to the Tropic of Capricorn. And so this makes the limit of the sun, but of the analemma as it's projected on this map,
Okay.
which is a Mercator projection.
Okay.
So if you had a different projection, that would be warped a little bit, because it's moving 23.4 degrees up and down off the equator.
Fantastic.
So if you had a map that squished it together more, it would be more of a rounded figure 8. What's interesting, and I'll try to explain this, is that why is there this distance right here?
Yes.
That also is tied to the projection of the map, but the distance between here and here is called the equation of time. And I had an astrophysicist try to explain that to me, and I got lost. So I think what happens is that in the time, it's like if the Earth is traveling at 7,000 miles an hour or something like that, then this is how long it takes to get in 60 seconds or something like that. But you know what? Someone can write me and tell me, if they can explain it in layman's terms, I'd be happy to pass it on, but I don't really understand that part. I think,
wonderful.
yeah. That
And
was
this
tough.
is all mechanical. Everything in here basically just is mechanical.
Yeah, this is not digital.
It's amazing.
That's
It's
a
amazing.
machine.
Wow.
Yeah, so come on out. I'll show you how they're made.
All right.
All right, so in the beginning, and for the first 50 years, we used little AC synchrotron motors. And there were some 30,000 clocks that were made with motors that were just like this. They're placed here, and then they also run here. And they spin at 600 revolutions per minute. And then on the inside, you can see how the gearbox spins this down to 1 revolution a day on that side. That's pretty crazy.
So one could almost think of that as almost like a transmission as well then.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's beautiful. So it's beautiful, but very difficult to have made anymore. What happened was the person who used to make these motors retired. And then the company started sending us a lot of motors that didn't work very well, and we were forced to come up with a better option. So we did. And the better option looks like this. So this is called a stepper motor, and it runs on magnets. And it's the same kind of motor that works inside of a printer, back and forth. And I can feel the grades between each little spot here, tick, 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 as it goes across.
Wow.
And so now we build the clock. You can zoom in right here. We build the clock using these motors on the inside to move it all very slowly and in time. Thank you.
How much work does it take to set those, to adjust those so that they work perfectly?
Gosh, that's a great question for Ben. He asked how long does it take to install these motors all together?
To make sure that they keep time precisely.
That's all on the circuit board side of things where that keeps time. The motors are just, they have step positions, and the circuit board actually handles all the positioning of how it turns it. Beyond that, I don't actually know.
Okay,
I
very
can tell
good.
you that each clock takes about 14 or 15 hours of handiwork to totally put together. That's our assembly side. That doesn't count all the sheet metal and stuff. If you swing your camera around that way, you can see all the storage that we keep of little tiny parts. Most of that is made within 10 miles of here.
American made, folks.
Yeah, it's all tiny.
American made.
All tiny, and it's expensive. So but it's the same part over and over and over again. So this is Daryl, and he's our chief mechanical sensei. And whereas Ben, who you saw, he does a lot of the electronics part of the clock and wiring everything together and the lights. Daryl gets involved with the mech plate, and you can see him installing a mech plate into this clock.
This mechanism is what gives you your figure 8. As you go to watch, this is a cam on here, and as it goes, the whole mech plate moves, and it ends up giving you that figure 8 that you saw in the middle of the map there. And that's where all the genius started. He had to figure out how to get a gear-driven mechanism to move in a figure 8 and move the calendar. This also drives the calendar. So it's all in gear reduction and like that. So, and that's why it's spring-loaded to hold it up against that cam. And yeah, it's pretty ingenious.
Yep.
The way the whole thing was invented, it's pretty. I wish I could have met him.
About how many parts do you think you work on a day, that you install on one of these a day?
Well, there's about 300 parts in the clock total of everything. I generally try to do 2 clocks a day, plus all the other stuff I do. And then Ben, it takes more for him because he has to tear it down to be rebuilt, clean it, and then he has to rebuild the mech plate and rewire the clock. And I do the panels and the light tracks and the final assembly and the inspection before shipping.
You're the final guy
kinda,
that checks it off.
Yep. So we finally kind of divided everything up so that, you know, everybody's got a whole bunch of stuff they're doing. I make the maps and that kind of stuff, you know.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you. What a neat job.
It's different than what I used to do, that's for sure.
So people, when they send in their clock, often it looks like this, kind of a map set. It's sort of washed out a little bit. That's because they used to screen print the map sets. And so this is geopolitical. All these are geopolitical, and then you get down to here, and this is our premium map set. You can see how it kind of has got a glow to it, and actually a tactile feel, and shows where it shows the topographical nature of the bottom of the ocean as well, which adds a lot of depth to the clock. And so those are options when people will send in their clock, and about 2/3 to 3/4 of our work is just restoring old clocks. There are some 30,000 of these that are out there. And if they live with them for 20 years and then they break, or they drop them, or they just get old and start flaking apart, then they're like, we're so grateful that you're here. Thank you for continuing to fix these clocks. And so that's really why we're here.
Isn't it true there's like one of these in a very special federal installation as well? I remember seeing
Yeah,
one
Daryl
video.
can answer that question about the Pentagon, right?
There's 130 plus in the Pentagon, and there's 6 of them in the White House. And they used to have one in the Situation Room. I don't know if they still do, but we have pictures. Presidents used to give them to dignitaries as gifts.
What an honor.
Yeah, Gorbachev received one from, I think, from Reagan. And so there's, you know, of course nowadays, you know, that's history of the whole thing, but, you know, they're everywhere. We sell a lot of them, the FBI, the CIA. We just had one in here just the other day from the FBI for repair.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a status symbol, I think, for people. I mean, not your average person can afford it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of one of those things where you just got through law school and you got your office going. Oh, I need one of those because that means that I've made it. You know, doctors love them.
So the machine is often like a retirement gift. The utility of the machine has been replaced by stuff that you can find on the internet, and then also by our own digital product too. But people who are like, you know, mostly older than me, and like my age and older, they just think the machine looks so awesome. Like, it's a machine. I feel it. I don't want to. So that's like if you think of Toy Story, that's like Woody. And then the Buzz Lightyear is the digital product. And everybody in younger me is like, why isn't that digital? So we made a digital one. But for me, my favorite part of the Geochron is the maps. I was talking about that. So this is what the map looks like when it's installed in the clock. It's 6 feet long, tapered together, and then we install them on the rollers around the clock.
And I see it looks like a piece of film almost on the very end, at the very edge.
You know, it is. This is actually a translucent. This one here is, well, yeah, these premium ones. These are actually photographic prints that are then put into a bath in a dark room. Developed in a dark room, and so these maps are works of art. And once you get them into a clock like this one, they really shine. We put quite a bit of work into designing a beautiful map and then finding the people. These kind of machines require an overhead that we could never possibly afford. So a lot of our stuff that's CNC'd or printed is done by local vendors around here in Portland. So these are the raw maps that go onto the clock. This is the centerpiece of the Geochron. And you'll see why if you can bring the camera over here and zoom in. This particular map is made in a dark room. It's developed. It's on translucent Lexan and then dye sublimated with a printer and then developed in a bath. And I think they're gorgeous. This is the one that I do have in my house. And something that we designed for our Earth Limited edition, and then put it together. Took a few features off of it for a regular premium map. You can see the geopolitical over here. This is the way the humans see the world. This is the way that nature sees the world, except for the time zones. So something interesting about time zones, people ask me how often I have to redo the map, because cities change and like countries change, but actually not that often. If you want to change the border of a country, you got to get into a shooting war. But if you want to change a time zone, you just talk to the city council. So like, for example, if you come in right here, I'm in Oregon, and Oregon lives in 2 time zones. They're right here, we're in Pacific time zone, and then we're in Mountain time zone over here, Pacific and Mountain. And that's just a choice by the local government. They wanted to be closer to Boise, over there on the eastern side of Oregon. Okay. So time zones change constantly.
And each one of these letters up here represent the time zone, right?
Yep. So like here in China, which is unusual, it's all time zone H. So you've got a spread of 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a 5-hour wide country, and it's all in one time zone. That's time zone H up here. But I think that's because they're like one China, like under a single political party. But I've been told by people who live in China that in fact they operate on different time zone over in Western China than they do in Eastern China, because it's just not practical to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I guess not. And this is the hole right here where the day of the week would go.
That's right. Another interesting detail about the map is this hammerhead that's right here. So before 2000, that did not exist. The international date line came right down here. So like today, it's Tuesday here and it's Wednesday here as we film this. But this hammerhead didn't exist until these countries, which are little tiny countries, little tiny Pacific islands, they wanted to be the first to meet the millennium. And so they petitioned the world body to get their time zone in time zone M plus 60 minutes, which is an hour, plus 120 minutes, which is 2 hours ahead of New Zealand, because they wanted to be the first to reach the millennium as like in marketing. It's good marketing. I'll give them that.
This is Geochron's parts section here. It's phenomenal. Just all the different parts that are needed to go into these clocks.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Like here's an example. We take these parts, and this is CNC'd about 4 miles from here. And then we put them together into small assemblies, and then the assemblies turn into bits and parts of the clock. So it's constantly a challenge to make sure that we have enough of these little parts, wire connectors, and these are great because these are widely available. This only exists for Geochron. This particular part right here has to go through a vendor in Oregon and another vendor in California to put the teeth on it, and then it comes back to us. This little notch right here was done by a vendor. 50 years ago they made this plastic injection molding part right here. They still have that piece, and so they sell it to us for pennies, but they have like 5,000 left, and once they have it left, then we'll have to pay for another run. But every single part has a story like this as we try to assemble the clock in 2020.
Wow. Is the clock entirely U.S. parts?
There are some of the componentry on the circuit board is not from the United States, and the stepper motors themselves are not from the United States, mostly because they're not made in the United States. You just can't get that stuff in the United States anymore. So we have to order those from overseas.
But just about everything in the clock is U.S. made,
I'd
manufactured?
say 90% of it, 95% of it is within 10 miles of here. 90% is within 10 miles of here. Another 5% would be in California. So we've taken a look at the Geochron Mechanical, and so the idea was that could we create this in a digital way? And the truth is I went to trade shows, some of which are on YouTube, and everybody that was older than me thought the clock looked awesome. They loved the machine. Everybody that was younger than me was mistaken in thinking that it was digital. Well, why isn't it an app when I explained that it was a machine? And well, I don't know. I said we don't know how to do that. So anyways, over time, over the course of about 2 years, we developed a Geochron Digital 4K that was much more affordable, like a quarter the price of the machine, and comes off this little box right over here. So this is rendering out through an HDMI connection into a 4K monitor that we don't provide. You have to come up with it yourself. So this should look familiar. Looking at a Geochron, you can see the sun. When we first started talking today, the sun was setting in New York, and now the sun is setting in Chicago, and the sun is rising. It was rising in Tokyo, and now it's rising in Shanghai, and coming up to Beijing probably in about an hour. And so these little dots that are out here are some of the bells and whistles that we're able to add because the Geochron is now in the digital age. So this blue, the white is the view from space, like city lights, but the blue is where people live. And where a lot of people live, it's green and then red. So guess what? Everybody lives in Southeast Asia. I think that's just magical.
Yeah.
You can see that nobody lives here, nobody lives in the desert, but
Africa's a little dark.
yeah, it is a little dark. And then we thought, let's have some satellites. So this is the position of the International Space Station right now.
Look at that.
Traveling at 5 miles a second at 262 miles above the Earth.
Wow.
And then the Hubble Space Telescope is just right over here.
Look at that. It's about to fall off the Earth.
Yep, it's about ready to go around. And in fact, you can see it come back around the Horn of Africa
Oh, look at
over
that.
here.
There it is already. Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So now it's in a digital age, and I mentioned the thing about Woody and Toy Story. Woody is the machine, and then Buzz Lightyear is the digital. Now we have all the maps that are available. So I'm going to swing over here to the human map. The same very map that we're using in the mechanical ones we're using here too. So this is the geopolitical map. And then we started to add more stuff. So I'm going to turn this over to grayscale mode so that we can see the layers build on top of the Geochron as I add them. First jumping over here to live, and then coming down to satellites. So here are a bunch of amateur radio satellites that are wandering all over. One thing that I don't have set up here is the predictive path of those satellites, which I can do. So I'm going to turn that on. Show info, and we're running 3 minutes back, and I'm also going to run 3 minutes into the future. And you see that little hatched line that starts arriving for that. And so you can see the path of where those satellites are going and where they've already been. And you can lengthen that out to up to 10 minutes. But there's a limit that we have to put on it because the map can get awfully busy. Because whether you know it or not, this is a golden age for satellites. And I'll demonstrate that here right now by jumping down to the launches in the last 30 days. Okay, you ready for this? Show all. It's going to take a second because there's a lot. So you see all these icons that are spread out here and here, and right around and bunching down here around the equator. These are all satellites that have been launched in the last 30 days. Isn't that a mind bender?
That is amazing.
I know. So all these Starlink ones, that's SpaceX right here. What they do is they launch 18, 20, 24 satellites at a time, and then over the course of months, they slowly propagate themselves to the proper position on Earth. I can read here that these are very low altitude ones, like as low as the ISS at 228 miles. But some of these satellites that have been recently launched, and the GPS satellites are, this says 8,000 miles, but if you look at the GPS ones, they're like 15,000 miles above the surface of the Earth.
Wow.
So they are, if you think of the Earth as a globe, let's say the Earth is as big as this, they are and 7,000 miles across, they are 3 units away.
Wow.
From the Earth.
From the surface.
Yeah, they're way out here. Okay, so that's the last 30 days. Again, I'm working in grayscale mode so you can see the layers a little bit better. The last satellites I'll point out are our weather satellites, but they're all available in these categories.
And for ham radio operators, one of the nice things about this is that you can work the ham radio satellites and know right when they're about to come up. You know right about how long you have to work them, and then you'll know about right when your signal is going to fade out. So it's just a handy tool to have one of these.
Yeah. So you can see here in the screen on the left is that I'm showing my weather satellites here. And there are about a dozen of them that are traveling across the surface of the Earth at about 500 miles, 521, 942, 519. And they are reading things like precipitation, weather, wind speed, and temperature. And they can do that from orbit. So we grab the data from those satellites and then we put them on the Geochron. So you can see like right here off the eastern seaboard, there's a huge storm system in the middle of the Atlantic right now. The gray is cloud cover, and the blue and the dark blue is where it's currently raining or snowing on Earth right now.
There you go. And that's a new installation of Geochron, isn't it?
Yeah, so that came out with version 2. We're probably about 9 months into this weather feature. What you don't appreciate looking at it from the video, where I constantly have this problem, is that this is a 4K screen, and it's difficult to pick up the nuance over the video, but you can tell.
You can almost see the wind.
You can see which way it's blowing.
Look at that.
And so, like, Iceland is getting nailed right now.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so.
It's just exciting. And then down here lower, where the resolution gets better, because we don't have to stretch it to the Mercator projection, you can see big puffy clouds that are coming up because the water is so warm, it's pushing the air up, which is creating thunderheads, which creates all these little tiny dots all over the place, which are, some of them are raining.
Beautiful.
So this is exciting. It'll take a minute.
Look at this here. It looks like there's almost like a small little super typhoon or typhoon right in this area here on the screen.
Yeah, you
where it's all
constantly see
wound
it
up.
swirling up all the time.
Just incredible.
Going one more step.
Folks, if you're in ham radio, this is a must. It really is. I mean, just to have one of these, and not that expensive. I mean, if you're looking at buying a tuner, you can buy one of these. And you can use it and work 100 watts and do real good at gray line. And probably it's something you'll spend just as much time staring at as you do at your SWR meter. So trust me, This is a must.
And what we hear from amateur radio guys is that this is the most photogenic thing in their whole shack. When people walk in, you might be looking at equipment, but your visitors who don't understand amateur radio, they're going like, is that the world? Is that what is this? And then you'll stand there for 20 minutes explaining it like I'm doing it right now. So we get that all the time from our folks. Okay, so it's going to take a minute to download the temperature gradient from our orchestration server, but you'll see where it's hot and cold and absolutely inhospitable for human life right now.
Wow.
One of the things that we are working up on a current update is to improve the speed of the menu on this side, because I know it's a little pokey using the remote control. But in 2020 and 2021, you'll see more features come online that have to do specifically with ham radio. You'll see hopefully a smartphone app that will be able to sync up with this so that you can control it not with a little remote like this. It's like, where's my remote? But everybody can always find their smartphone, which is right there in their pocket. So these are things that we're constantly improving on the product. All the stuff that I've shown you today, as of January 2020, all this stuff is available for the life of the product just for the purchase of the Geochron Digital. That's because by courtesy of the US government, they're providing all this data to us. So I don't have to pay for it, right? So I'm happy to push it out on my server to everybody who owns a Geochron because I want people to really enjoy this because it's gorgeous. However, we are very nearly ending the part where we can get stuff for free. So if I want volcanoes, if I want earthquakes, if I want major disasters and all that kind of stuff, or lightning, somebody please give me lightning. That actually costs money. And so when it starts to cost me money, then there's going to be a small premium that you will pay. That's coming up in the future because I just can't do it for free.
No way.
Yeah. Not a lot, just like having a premium feature on your app. Just sort of like that. So in this screen, two things I want to point out. One is you can see the precipitation and the swirls that are coming around. It's like the atmosphere moves like water, except it doesn't have any density, it doesn't have any mass to us humans. So here, the colors represent the temperature gradient on Earth. So right now in the Pacific Northwest, it's fairly cool. So that's sort of a nice, it's somewhere between green and blue. But up here, just positively inhospitable for humans. You're gonna freeze to death. But down here, the sun's just set in South America and it's cooking in Brazil. It is hot. Of course, you can see from the insolation pattern, the gray line, that it's summertime down here because the sun is shining much more, and so that solar heat is heating up the southern hemisphere of the planet. That's what causes the sun. That's what causes the seasons. Over here, you can see how it's always cold at high elevations, and the satellites are picking that up. The ones that are about ready to cruise over the country of Nepal at 5 miles a second, NOAA ACE, going to be there in about 45 seconds. I think it's so cool that you could know that.
No kidding.
And so, in fact, all of Russia is really quite cold, and up here in upper China. One of the things that I've always seen, if you want to jump in right here, you want to come a little closer, is that the weather is fairly warm in the Atlantic Ocean, but Europe stays consistently cold. You can see that. Here's the Mediterranean, here's the Atlantic. It's warm. It's warmer than it is out here today in Portland, but it's frigid, starting from France all the way over and into Eastern Europe.
I've never noticed that before, but you're 100% right, because here's the east coast of the United States right here. Yeah. You come up, there's the Gulf Stream, and then you get way over here, and it is cold.
And right here in Spain, they're getting dumped on between Corsica and the coast of Spain on the eastern side.
Wow.
See that big blue blotch right there?
Yeah.
That means bring your umbrella.
Really bad. Wow.
Yeah. But as you live with it, the geochron, the patterns that you hear about and that you sense in your own immediate environment. One of the things I love about geochron, both the mechanical and also the digital, is that I've traveled to India, and I've traveled to South America, and I've traveled to Europe. And I can see that right now in Europe, that's time zone A, so right now it's just about midnight in Europe. And I feel it. I feel it. I remember what that feels like.
Wow.
Right that moment. I was in India, I was in Madurai, and right
and
now
look at all the population there. Look at this. It's folks, I mean, I just want to say, you look at this thing for hours. Look at the population center there in India. It's dark, and it shows because it's dark in that part of the world right now. It's just beautiful. And very adjustable, simple menus. You just use it from a very small little remote control. Looks very much kind of like the Apple remote control for your television. Looks very similar to that. And this is very well done. There's not a million buttons to learn. It's very simple. And what you come out with is a not 720p, not HD, but a real 4K resolution display that if you don't have it on a 4K machine, you're just missing out. It's like the difference between black and white and color. I've seen it myself, and I can tell you that this is an amazing product when you get it on a 4K display. And I'm sorry you can't see it as well on this video as it really looks in person. Here's a great example of India. Look at this. That's the population center of India. Right? That's the lights. That's all the people there in India. You can see.
And where it's red, they're living on top of each other.
There you go. Yeah, there's over 1 billion people there in India. So there you go, folks. It gives you a great idea. What an impressive product. And it doesn't cost a fortune. This is something very affordable. Less than that antenna tool you're thinking about, I guarantee it. Beautiful. Any other comments on it, Patrick, you can think about? It's just beautiful.
No, actually, I will say that we wanted to create something that was like the machine, but that was affordable and that we could also meet the digital field. And what we found is that we can add so much more. And so we're constantly building on it and making it better.
And updating it and constantly making sure it's better. And people get a warranty with them as well, don't they?
Oh yeah, it's a 1-year warranty, and then you'll see updates. We probably update about every 3 months with some new feature, some new thing going on. Sometimes it's an increase in performance as we get better at streamlining our coding. We're really just a tiny organization. There is not a whole floor full of programmers. It's just me and 2 programmers, and they also double in technical support. We answer the phone.
Very
We're
cool.
just small guys.
Look, if you're wanting to support a true American company that is working very hard, not only to make a quality product, but to make it right, go to Geochron, put it on your TV, put it in your house, wherever you need to put it. It is absolutely stunning, and you'll wonder how you ever got along without it in the first place. Patrick, thank you.
You bet.